And today I want to talk about how fucked we are, let's say. I have a question for you. Who was here last time I talked, which was like a month ago? No, none of you. So last time I was trying to give a picture, a prospective picture about the future, about how, let's say the bottom line is we will own nothing and we will be happy about it. And it was like broad stroke of how the society is going to change, how we live our life is going to change. But it was wide. It was not down to exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to happen physically, mechanically. And this is what I would like to address today. Some people, very powerful people, came with a word that's called the Great Reset. And this is the base on which I would like to talk about the revolution that is coming and how it is going to affect our lives. And more importantly, how we have options and possibilities to profit from it if we look in the right direction and we don't stay too blind about the changes that are already happening. So fasten your seat belt, and again, we are fucked. Vlad, next slide.
It will load a couple
It
seconds.
will take some time. Okay, the key word is crisis. I sincerely believe that there's crisis all around us. Okay, there's wars, productivity is not going up, ecological crisis. I mean, we are literally surrounded by crises non-stop. The COVID crisis, the subprime crisis, oil spill, you name it. Okay, can I have the next slide? So let's paint the picture of the world we're living in today. Steeper inequality. Simple math. Half the population in the world has their condition of living that have improved since we started our industrial revolution, which is basically starting to dig a lot of coal 250 years ago out of the ground, starting to burn it and do all that. So half of the world is better off. But there's also another half where we can arguably agree, or at least discuss, that they're not. Relatively speaking, their conditions, even though it has improved, it has not improved in the same proportion. So we left behind half of the world. And when you realize that, say, there's less than 100 people in the world who have more accumulated wealth than the bottom 50% of the entire population in the world, 3.5 billion people, that tells a lot about how humanity is dealing with its social and economical justice. This is not going to improve. Okay? If you look around, people are spitting in their face, the blue against the red, and it's getting worse. And, the inequality is not going to change within the paradigm we're living in at the moment. Okay? So that's one thing. Exponential exhaustion of natural resources. That one is by far the most important issue we're facing. Okay? Some people call it global warming, but what it really comes down to is we are fucking up with the cycle of water on Earth, which is a closed ecosystem. Okay? If you set up the fire on a small pot of water, at some point, you can see that everything is starting to move and get agitated and all that. This is exactly what we're doing by loading not only carbon dioxide, but plenty of other molecules up in the air or in the atmosphere. But this is what we're doing. We are slowly eating up the thing. And for every degree that we increase the temperature of the atmosphere, it's 7% more of humidity that can be loaded in the atmosphere. So by fucking up the water cycle, everything that is related to water is going to get worse. So we're talking more snow in the winter, more drought in the summer. We are talking about tsunamis, we are talking about flood, wildfire and hurricane and all those things. Okay? And as long as we keep on producing carbon dioxide and emit it in the atmosphere, we're not going to change that at all. And sincerely, it is like frightening and terrifying. And we go business as usual. I mean, sure, we greenwash a little bit here and there. We say that, we improve this product, but we keep on producing the same way. We keep on using fossil fuel to run our entire economy and our entire lives. Now, this is a small parenthesis, but from a life with a big L perspective, from the Earth perspective, she doesn't care. We can fuck it up, we can burn it all down the way we are, and in 1,000,000 years from now, she's going to be back on her feet without us. So how do we come up with a plan? When I say we, I mean humanity. How do we come up with a plan to get out of the trap we set for ourselves? We need a map, we need a compass, we need something that is exciting and driving for everybody from the top to the bottom to say, yes, we're going to do this. And literally what it comes down to is we need a new economy. We need something that will allow us to keep on thriving and developing, but by also being more careful about how we interact with this closed ecosystem. So, can I have the next slide? What we need is just a revolution. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming slowly. What we need is an industrial revolution. What is an industrial revolution? It's a combination of 3 events, 3 improvements that are converging to make our value chain and the transportation, the production of goods becoming better and more efficient. Can you give me the next one? And those three things are
Let's wait.
those three things are the following. It's a new communication system. It's a new way of producing energy. And it is a new way of moving things and people from one place to another. Okay. I'm not the one saying it. I'm picked it up from a great guy, Jeremy Rifkin. Fantastic. Go read his book, watch his videos. The guy is mind-blowing. Let's look back in history. In the UK, at the end of the 18th century, three things happened kind of at the same time. One, we came up with the telegraph, which was a way to send information from one person to another. Not instantly, not a lot of information, but it was going pretty fast, a lot faster than before. And instead of taking days, now it would just take minutes to get information going through. Massive increase in the communication. At the same time, they also improved by a lot the printing. They came up with mechanical printing, and they were able to print journals, newspapers, spreading more information. Now, at the same time, they also came up with burning coal. Okay, that's how they started to power engine, steam engine, which is the new way of using a power source. And that steam engine, they put it on rail, and they build up those massive railroads all over the countries and all over the world. And that has improved productivity and the value chain of things by an order of magnitude. It removed friction, it made everything faster, and we were able to produce, move, store, sell, recycle, extract, everything in a much, much, much better way. Okay, that was an industrial revolution. It's in every book. The second industrial revolution was in the US at the beginning of the 20th century. What happened there? We had new ways of communication. Radio, but television, but most importantly, the telephone. Yes, it was plugged to the wall, but you could just pick it up and talk live with someone. That was a massive improvement in how we communicate. At the same time, we started to dig earth not for coal anymore, but for oil. And at the same time, or let's say at the same period, we put our engine on wheels, we created roads, and we had the cars and the trucks. And that was the second industrial revolution, which peaked, let's say, 30 years ago. Okay? We had improvement within that system from the early 1900s and for a century until late 1900. But for the last 30 years, it's flatlining. We don't have growth anymore. We do not improve something that is called aggregated value. So the aggregate value of a product is basically you look at all the resources you need to invest to make that product, to move it, to store it, to sell it, to extract whatever you need to make it, and how much of those resources are in the value of the product and how much have been wasted. And when they started the second industrial revolution, the aggregated value of the product on average was like 3%, which means that 97% of everything we had to invest into a product was dissipated. And by the end of the 1990s, we peaked. In the US, the aggregated value is around 14%. In Germany, maybe 17%. And the country that has achieved the best aggregated value to its economy was Japan, 20%. What happened to the other 80%? How can we improve that? And the thing is, we believed for a long time, economically speaking, that the way to improve your productivity, which is another way of talking about aggregated value, was to either having better machine or to have better worker. And with everything we've created for the last 120 years, we tried very hard to make both the worker and the machine better. It doesn't work. Productivity is still at its peak, and the growth, the GDP is stagnating. So we're fucked. We're really fucked. We need a change. So who are we? Our people, humanity. There used to be the Bronze Age, and then we moved into the Iron Age. How are we going to be remembered, 200, 500 years down the line? We're going to be remembered as the fossil fuel people who dug the earth and burned everything they found. So, okay, better machine, better worker. But there is one thing that we somehow forgot, and that kind of explains what happened to the other 80%. This is what I was saying about the pot on the fire. Earth is a semi-closed environment. Okay? We get energy coming from the sun. We get plenty of it. But we do not receive matter. I mean, we do receive a little bit. There's a meteorite or maybe dust, cosmic dust or whatever that are falling on Earth, but we're running on a limited amount of resources. And those resources, they've been produced in our sun billions of years ago, which means that, yes, we are truly made of stars. Like every element, every atom in your body come from a star, including the water, which basically is what we're looking for. This is something I forgot to say, but when we're looking in the space, looking for an inhabitable place, the only thing we are looking for is there water or not? We get super excited when we find a little bit of water on the moon or on Mars, but if there's no water, we don't even look at the rock, because we know that without water, we cannot live. Okay, so we are a closed ecosystem. Can you give me the next one? Which is about aggregated value, which is, we need to understand that, okay? This is what we do with everything. We extract, we refine, we store, we ship, we produce the goods, we use it, and hopefully recycle it. And at every step, we're losing energy. We're losing value. Okay? In the same way that, I don't know, when I eat a steak or a salad or whatever, not everything that is in there is going to be useful to me. I'm going to lose a lot of it in the process. Okay? And the thing is, this is what we need to improve. This is where the other 80% can change. We're stuck at 20% of aggregated efficiency, and this is a ceiling. There is no way we can make it better as long as we operate in the framework of the second industrial revolution. As long as we produce vertically electricity or resources and goods, and we distribute them the way we distribute them, we will not improve that. As long as we are plugged into that system, we are fucked. Okay. So, can I have the next slide? This is so slow. If you have questions, feel free to shoot. Okay. So, we need to leap into a new economy. Okay, the third industrial revolution, the one that's coming after the first and the second one that we just talked about, we need the same three fundamental pillars to get a substantial change on how the world operates. Okay, so we need to change communication. Internet? Yeah, internet is a good way of improving communication. It's mature, it's been here for like 20-ish years, and I think we can all agree that it changed our lives in magnificent ways. We need to improve transportation. And I sincerely believe that with the development of AI and self-driving vehicle, which is something that we talked about last time I was here, we get that covered. Now we need one more change, which is how do we produce energy? We're coming from this system where we are burning from the ground coal and oil. And what we need and what they are building is an internet of energy. And this is very important for you to grasp. The fact that we are going to retrofit absolutely everything, every building, because what we need is to produce electricity all over. You're going to be your own electricity producer, and the people who are today operating a vertical delivery of electricity coming from big power plant all the way down to your power socket, they are going to become mediators. They are going to become processors. They are going to become facilitators. Now, those three things, internet, automated electrical vehicle, and an internet of energy, let's call it Enernet, that is going to run on the Internet of Things. Right now, we are operating mostly on Internet of People. I have a phone, you have a phone, you have a phone, you all have a phone, most likely. You're behind a computer right now. That computer is connected on Internet, but we connect to each other. We connect person to person. But there are already a few billions. I didn't check the number, but I think we already passed the 10 billion marks of things, not people, that are connected on the internet. Now your fridge is on internet. Okay, your car can be on internet. You know, not just you. And those things they are talking to each other. Okay? There are sensors, there are smart objects. They're going to bring us, there can be wearables, glasses, watches, but they're also going to be like advanced human-machine interface. But what they do really is that they create, and I really want to say it right, an external prosthesis distributed nervous system. We have to look at it as a nervous system for humanity. And this thing is going to be distributed. It's everywhere. It's going to be on the road, it's going to be on the field, it's going to be on every building. And all those things are going to talk together. Now, this is where it's becoming relevant to the conferences that we're giving here. The language that we're going to use for those things is going to be the blockchain. Okay? Blockchain is the language of things and people to talk together. Now, one of the key words that I just said about this nervous system is the fact that it's going to be distributed. Okay? There's plenty of small things that talk to each other that create a massive amount of data. Can I have the next one? So, the values of the economy we are going into. If you look at how those networks are being built. Okay, I need to make a small break here. This is not something that I am pulling out of, conspiracies or whatever. Jeremy Rifkin, the guy that inspired this talk, he is consulting for Germany, but basically for all the European Union. He's consulting for China. And those countries or continent are moving in that direction. I am not talking about something that is going to happen. I am talking about something that is happening and that has started 5 or 10 years ago. Okay? Now, those are values. Those are values of this new system we're talking about. We're not going to produce electricity in big power plants. We're going to retrofit every building, and you're going to produce your own electricity. And whatever you don't use, you can sell. And whatever you don't have, you can buy. Okay? It's going to be distributed. It's going to be collaborative. But the last three, whether it's going to be open, resistant, and more importantly, neutral, this here is a political fight for us and for the next 1 or 2 generations to fight and to win. Okay? That battle, which is going to be a very tough battle, is going to dictate whether we're going to live in a dystopian world where a few controls absolutely everything, or if we can build our own economy on top of those tools. So network neutrality is definitively a key. Okay? Now, do we see them coming? CBDC, central bank digital currency. We talk about it everywhere, all the time, at least in the crypto sphere. Okay? This is where we are going. This is where they are going. They're going to remove all the physical paper money and they're going to turn it into digital, programmable, fake currency that they can still print as much as they want, and basically they're going to feed that to us whether we work or not. Okay. So if they win, and they will most likely win, we will live in a dystopian world. Now, if you listen to Sim on regular occasion, we also know that this dystopian world is going to be around augmented realities. It's going to be an hallucination about what we feel, all our senses. We will be able to, I mean, right now we're using, Facebook and Instagram and all those things. We're still sitting in front of the screen, but soon that screen is going to be inside us. Okay? But that new economy, or those values here, which is literally, okay, those are the values, not just of the economy I'm talking about, or how electricity should be distributed, or how a fleet of automated vehicle would be used, because this is what it is. It's distributed, it's collaborative, it's open. It's not really neutral. But those are the values of blockchain. Okay? So I don't know how you guys are familiar with blockchain, but blockchain is just a ledger. It's a new way of storing and processing information. Now, on top of those values, blockchain is supposed to be immutable, which means that once you wrote something on the blockchain, it is there. Okay? And nobody can change it. Nobody can erase it. And that is amazing, because if you look on the big picture, that means that we are just acquiring, as humanity, a new memory. We used to write down things on paper, but paper can burn. So what we did is that we duplicated the paper by printing more books to make sure that at least one can survive. But that's a way of keeping up with information. The problem is within 20 years, the book, get old and fade, and except if you really are amazingly careful with it, information might get lost. Blockchain is the new memory of humanity. And it is the language in which we're going to write the new paradigm shift and operate the third revolution that I'm trying to point fingers at. Now, I don't know about you, but the fact that blockchain is transparent and open, and that anybody, absolutely anybody, can go on the blockchain and mine information and analyze the on-chain data and make their own analysis, that is completely crazy. I mean, if you think that blockchain could operate everything, and not just the few things that we are building today, but literally everything, that's going to make Snowden scandal and Panama Papers scandals completely ridiculous compared to what we will be able to do. So let's switch to digitalization. Napster. Who remember Napster here? Okay, so it was like what? 20 years ago, Napster came out. Now we have Spotify. They opened a door. The whole music industry was like, yeah, sure, no problem, business as usual. But then, within a few years, the music industry was completely revolutionized. Okay? And now, owning your music, having a physical copy of your music, doesn't really make sense anymore. I mean, I know a couple of people. I mean, we know a fantastic DJ who owns those beautiful vinyl, and fuck, the guy is good. Really good. I see that smile. But where am I? But music has been revolutionized. what happened to the big player of music from the old paradigm? Most of them died. Few of them survived because they saw the change coming and they became a distributor of the information instead of being a producer. And here we're going to move to something very interesting, is that once you put the music, the file online, distributing it to 1% or to 10% or to 1 billion person cost nearly the same. Not exactly the same, but nearly the same. Distributing it to one more person doesn't make a big difference. But before, producing a disk, transporting it, making it available, and everybody has to buy it, there was a cost to that. There was a marginal cost for every single unit you wanted to move and to sell for people to use. So the music industry got fucked up. Okay. But then the book industry got fucked up. The news industry got crushed in a good way. Who else? Education, to some extent, now is getting pretty fucked up because you can go online and find massively online course, open course, which are most of the time free. Udemy, we were talking about Udemy a few minutes ago before the beginning of this talk. I mean, you pay $10 and you get like a 5-hour course that in other, 20 years ago would have cost probably $500. Now, one thing that nobody saw coming, except maybe for a few enlightened people, is that we believe that this digitalization packet of services would stay in the digital world. Okay? There was a wall between what you can do in a digital world and what you can do in the physical world. There was no way that trending towards a zero marginal cost was something that could be applied in real physical life. Okay, I understand pictures, videos, entertainment, music, books, education. Okay, because this is knowledge. It's not physical. But we were wrong. That change is happening. And it is happening because we have a new way of producing energy, because we have a new way of transporting things, and we have a new way of communicating. And now that we have everything that is talking with everything, that is talking with everyone, using all those sensors and this Internet of Things, the only thing you need is like a 3D printer. And they are building 3D printers for everything. Car parts are being 3D printed. Tesla does it. In fact, the same guy, Elon Musk, SpaceX, they are printing parts of their rocket. I mean, we've all seen on YouTube videos of a house being printed in 24 hours. It's just a very big 3D printer. And that's it. And the thing is, because we are moving into something that is open and collaborative, there's something new that didn't exist 20 years ago. Open source. We used to protect and collaborative common, I think that's the word. Yeah, collaborative, where right now, most of the things, you can find a plan for it, feed it into your 3D printer, print it, connect it to internet, and live on with your life. So yeah, the wall has been broken. The possibility to go down to a zero marginal cost when you produce something, not just a content, not just music, image, videos, but also when you produce things, that is going down to a zero marginal cost. So let's talk a little bit, real brief, about curves. You know, how, like there are there are literally two big curves. We have the transition curve, which is the S shape, okay? So this one, for instance, was the number of kids per family. It used to be 8, and now there was a transition, it go down to 2, around 2. And we know why it happens. It's just because what you wanted to have is 2 kids per family on average, but at some point in time you had to make 8 because 6 of them would die in their infancy, but then you would be left with 2, and that's how you keep the movement going from one generation to the other. But then we improved significantly the way we can treat diseases and prevent death. So we had those 2 or 3 generations of families that had 8 kids, and then the next generation they stopped, and they're like, yeah, maybe we should make only 2 because we know they're not going to die. That was the transition. This is a transition that is happening, that has happened in the Western world, so in the US, in Europe, in a few other countries, and this is a transition that is happening right now in, for instance, Africa. But they're going through the transition, and at some point we will be done. The entire humanity will have been through that transition, and we will be here. Now we have the symmetrical one, the one that goes from here and then goes up and then stagnate when we're close to the top. That, for instance, is the adoption. Adoption of cell phone, adoption of internet. We were here, early 2000. Not a lot of people had cell phones, but by 2010, we were here. Everybody had cell phones. If we're talking about blockchain, where are we right now, today? August 31st, 2022. We are still here in the adoption curve. Okay? Sure, everybody online or in this room, we know about blockchain. We educate ourselves to the best of our capacity, but most of the world, most of the rest of humanity, they haven't moved there yet. So we are still somewhere here. We're just taking off. And this is important. Because if we agree, and I'm trying to demonstrate as hard as possible, that blockchain is the language of the future, it is part of the infrastructure of what's coming next. Investing in blockchain today is the equivalent of investing in internet back mid-90s. It's the equivalent of investing in oil back in the 1900s. It was the equivalent of investing in newspaper back in the 1800s. Anybody who did that, who choose to educate themselves about this new technology and select project and place a little bit of money in there, they generated generational wealth. Not wealth just for themselves, but wealth for themselves, their family, their kids, and the kids of their kids, and the next 3 generations. Everybody could just burn through money because there was enough, because they were smart enough to see the change coming. And this is exactly, in my opinion, I'm trying to convince you, this is exactly what is happening with blockchain. However, There are something like 10,000 projects in the crypto industry, and we know that 90% of them are just bullshit, scam, things we should not even look at. And within the 10% that are left, probably half of them are going to die. Not because they are bad projects, but because sometimes even bad projects fail. Because it's not just about the project, it's about the people, it's about surviving a winter. I mean, with Bitcoin at $20,000 right now, we can agree that we are in a crypto winter, but summer will come. And so there are good projects dying, but there are a few. So here I'm just going to share my personal, and I'm not going to try to convince anybody, but my personal approach on investing in the crypto industry. What I am looking at mostly is infrastructure. I am not looking about this new project that's going to do something that I don't even understand. I'm looking at projects that are building something that is meant to survive. I want to invest in roads, in railroads. I want to invest in extracting oil. I'm using here the old images. So people call it layer one. Okay, those are infrastructure. This is the kind of things that I'm investing in. Now, one thing also that I picked up from Sim is that when I am looking at a project, I just want to make sure that the people who are behind the project are the people who are running the world. Okay? I don't want to invest on a project that some kid, even though the project may be good and the team might be fantastic, some kid who doesn't give a fuck is going to try to bring to the moon, because that guy is going to get shot along the way. Metaphorically or literally speaking, I don't care. But if you dig and you look at the people who are investing and backing the project, if you realize that those people are the people coming from Davos, from the World Economic Forum, who owns bank, who are the Rockefeller and all that of the world, then you know that this is the project that they want to use for the future. Because remember, that great reset, that third industrial revolution is not something that comes from the people. It's something that comes from the top. They play the game and they decide in which direction we are going. That analysis I'm trying to make about the third industrial revolution and how we need to switch the world from how we produce energy, how we communicate, and how we move things, they are making that kind of decision. So they are building right now the tool, and we are just sitting in a petri dish where we are playing with it. We're creating the 9,500 other projects that are not going to survive. So if you choose to invest in blockchain, because blockchain is the language of the future, for the next 250 years, it is going to be the language. Do your due diligence. I'm not telling you to become an expert in how blockchain functions. I am not. I can barely explain what blockchain does, but I understand the value it's bringing with it, and I understand the scope on which it can operate and fundamentally change the world. Okay, so that here was the small part that is the core of what we do here every Wednesday, trying to bring people a little bit of light on what this industry does. And usually Sim is somebody who's really going to the core, and I'm trying to bring something that is a little bit more of a wider view on how it operates with the world. Okay. The velocity at which the change I'm talking about is going to happen, and the scope on which it's going to impact us is mind-blowing. It literally is mind-blowing. The curve we are talking about? Okay. Usually it goes fast. You know, internet adoption, 10 years. The transition to blockchain is going to go faster than that. There is another curve. We talked about the S curve. There is another curve that we need to comprehend, to explain the changes, or to just refer to it and say, oh yeah, sure, I see. This is the exponential one. Okay? Starts from here, it takes off, but it doesn't stop. It doesn't plateau. It just takes off. Have you heard about the Moore laws? The one where the computational power double every 18 months. Okay? That one is very important to remember, because this guy coined that, like, I don't know, how old is Moore's law? Maybe 10, 15, 20 years? It still works. Okay? We still have that. And that computational power is not going to stop. We are going to keep on doubling the computational power for a very long time. Maybe there's going to be a plateau, but it's not going to be tomorrow or in the next 10 or 20 years. So that curve is important because, I mean, as a model, as a way of understanding things, because, for instance, if you do not integrate it for computational power, then you cannot comprehend how the new reality, the augmented reality, the alternate realities are going to be accessible. Sincerely, 20 years ago, thinking about what computer could do today was out of everybody's reach. I mean, in terms of nobody could grasp how internet would change our life. And today, here we are. So, can you give me the next one? I think I was carried away and I forgot a couple of slides. So let's get back to it. Okay, we'll own nothing and we'll be happy. Perfect. Who wants today to own a car? Do you? Do you want to have your own car? Okay. Do you want to own a car? You know, it's going to sit 95% of the time. You have to wash it every Sunday. You have to maintain it. It's a burden. I mean, I come from a world where I strongly believe that whatever you own owns you back. But the millennials, the young adult today, they don't want to own a car. They want to use the service. So, Uber is an example of how the digitalization went through the wall between digital world and physical world. You don't own a car, but you can use a car. Airbnb is the biggest hotel in the world. They don't own a single room. They own a network. So somehow, that digitalization went through the wall and into our real world. Now, I believe, and I want to convince you, that transportation, which is a key of the third industrial revolution, remember, we need it, transportation is going to be revolutionized, or is being revolutionized already, by autonomous, self-driving, electrical vehicle. For every shared vehicle, there are 15 old school, personally owned vehicle that are going to become useless on average. So let's be conservative, and let's say 10. Okay, 1 for 10. There's nearly 2 billion vehicles circulating today on the world. 1.8 billion of them are doomed to disappear. And the remaining 200 million, they're going to run on cheap or marginally free electricity that everybody can produce out of a network. There's no human cost because we removed the driver. And we're printing the parts. So the cost of using it is going to go from wherever it is today down to nearly nothing. Or say it's going to become marginally free for you to use a car, in the same way that it's becoming marginally free today for us to use this. I mean, I'm paying 10 euro a month and I got unlimited access, I mean, at least on my French phone. But same here, like, I don't know, I pay what, 100,000 rupiah per month, and I get enough. I get enough of everything. I can call, I can spend hours on the phone, I have a lot of data, I'm very happy. 20 years ago, that was not the case. 20 years ago, I was paying by the minute. Every time I was sending an SMS, it would cost me a few cents. And I received like 4 pages long bill about every action I did with my phone. Now I get a one line that says 10 euro, that's it, thank you. Okay? The data, the access to data became marginally free. And the only thing you're paying for is access to a network. This is another keyword, network. So, okay, back to the car. And the electricity that goes with. I have one good news and one bad news about electricity. So I'll start with the bad news. There is a huge amount of wealth that is locked into assets that are going to become completely useless in a very near future. Okay? Everything that is related to the old way of producing electricity vertically, big power plant, big distribution, consumer at the end, top to bottom, super dumb network that goes one way. Okay? The stations, all the power plants, all that network, or a big part of the network and a big part of how we're using it, that is going to become redundant. Or sorry, obsolete, not redundant, completely obsolete. We're going to retrofit part of it and make it smart, but we're going to have to build something else. Which, small parenthesis here, but to build a new network of electricity to connect everything, we're going to need a lot of copper. And if you've never heard about one of the projects that we're working with, Real Earth Element, we are working with tokenized copper mine. They're operating in Chile today. They're going to operate in the Philippines in the future. And if you want to know more, please contact me or somebody in the team or in the group, because not only tokenization is the future, but we are going to need a lot of copper, and those guys, I mean, we are extracting copper in a clean way, and we're going to need a lot in the future. So copper is a very safe bet. Anyway, what I wanted to say here is that subprime crisis back in 2008 is a joke compared to what's going to happen when all the fossil fuel dependent infrastructure we've built for the last 100 years are going to become obsolete. Okay? It is going to reshape our cities. I mean, wherever you live in the world, okay, look down in the street, tell me how many vehicles there are. Remove 80, 90, or maybe 95% of them. Remove, the structures that goes with them. Remember, absolutely everything in our world today is based on petrol. Fabric, petrol. Fertilizer, petrol. Transportation, petrol. Pharmaceutical, petrol. There's petrol everywhere. And that's my point. It's all finished. But the thing is, it is not finished yet. Okay? I don't know what the price of a barrel is today, but it is still obscene. Okay? And when that switch is going to happen, and right now they are trying to slow down the switch as much as possible because they have to get ready, but when it's going to happen, it's going to hurt a lot. So do they see it coming? Fuck, yes. I'm French. EDF, Électricité de France, is, I guess it's state-owned, but it's the company that is running this vertical distribution of electricity. Okay? They own and control the power plants, pick up the electricity, use those big cables, distribute it, make you pay for it. They are already switching. Okay? I think it was around 5 years ago that they came to my door and they installed a new meter. I used to have a meter that was working only one way. And that was stupid. It was just counting. That's it. Now, I have a computer. And it was 5 years ago in France, which is not the fastest country transitioning to a new way of producing energy because we are fucking hooked on nuclear energy. So that change is already on the way. The retrofitting of the network is already on the way. If you look at the big German electricity provider, they are already doing that because Germany, what happened in Germany is slightly different than France because they didn't have as much nuclear as we did in France, and that opened the door for a faster switch. So they subsidized a little bit the production, the self-production of electricity, you becoming producer of your own electricity. So a lot of people went to the bank and say, hey, can I borrow money so I can install, small windmill or solar panel, and the bank give them the money because it was a safe bet. And those big German electricity provider went close to being bankrupt. And now they are operating on a very different model where they are just networking. They are going to those small communities and they're like, let us help you. Okay? They are connecting the people and they are getting paid on a very different model. They are not being paid on the number of kilowatt hour you're using. They are being paid on a performance contract. So their incentive is not for you to use more electricity. Their incentive is for you to use less electricity. And the less electricity you're going to use, the more efficient you're going to be in your use of the electricity in general. This is how they're going to make their money. This is a completely new, different model for them. I can talk about that for 2 hours. In fact, I did talk about that for 2 hours. So if you want to know more about the we'll own nothing and we'll be happy, which is what I'm trying to say about the digitalization of everything, which relies on the fact that the cost of electricity is going to go down. Go back to that talk. I like it. Can you give me the next one? Is this my coffee? Oh, yeah. So what are we doing? Because right now I mostly brought bad news. The world is in crisis. We are going into the wall. We're facing the 6th major extinction on the planet. We're being fucked by them. And if we want to have a chance to have a decent world, we're going to have to fight like hell to make sure that the values of blockchain stay in there and are not lost. So how do we shape a new world? Can you give me the next one? This is one of the smoothest equations I've ever wrote. Simple. Living in a near zero marginal cost is the benchmark for the future. Remember the aggregated efficiency I was talking about? We're removing nearly all the steps. We're going to go from extract to recycle, and everything else in between is going to be marginally free. Because we can move things for nearly nothing. We can use energy for nearly nothing. And we can create things for nearly nothing. So that long chain goes from we extract and we recycle. And if we're good at recycling, and we're getting good at recycling, oh, I coined a new word, I love it. Because we're talking about waste. Okay? And waste management is one of the big problems. I hope that somebody will come here and talk one day about waste management. And I know who. Waste sources. Because waste is resources. And this is how you close the loop. You just have to extract the little bit from the earth that you need. And then this is kept in a closed circle where recycling becomes massively important, but every other step is becoming frictionless in terms of how much dissipation you add in every step. And this is how we're going to go from a ceiling of 20% aggregated efficiency to probably 40, 50% in a near future, in the next 20 or 50 years. Sorry, 20 to 30 years. We're going to double the efficiency of everything we're doing at the minimum. And it's probably going to be more than that. And every other steps are gone. Okay, so we extract, we recycle. So this is the benchmark for a sustainable future. Going back to CO2. When was the last time the sun sent you a bill? When was the last time the wind asked for money? And the thing is, the dissipation in the value chain of everything we're creating is mostly energy. The friction comes from there, and transportation. Those two things being solved on top, combined, with internet of information and internet of things operating on a new language, which is blockchain, we have our third industrial revolution. And we're going towards this. So how do we profit from it? If you have a lot of money, a lot, I strongly suggest that you invest in projects that are gearing towards the changes I talked about. New electricity, new vehicle, near zero marginal cost. Now, if you don't have a lot of money, you need to approach your own life thinking about this. What can I do that's going to make the world a better place, preferably? But what can I do that can be replicated again and again and again with very little cost? Okay, you really have to think that way. I'm going to have a slide about that a little bit later. Can you give me the next one? Well, that's the one. Okay? Warren Buffett said that. But now it's mine. Okay? I'm saying it every day to every people I talk with when I'm trying to help them reshape their strategy in life or deal with the assets and be like, how can I make my life better? That's the approach. If the only moment in life you're making money is when you are actively doing something, you're going to work until the day you die. But if when you sleep, your YouTube video or your book or your course or the things that you are printing, whether at home or in a small warehouse, are being moved and shared and used, then you're going to become wealthy. We are changing. The world used to be made of two kinds of people. Either I am producing something or I am consuming something. Let's mash those two. We are going to become prosumer. We are part-time capitalists in a shared economy system. There are things that we do have to do. We work a little bit, we produce content, we produce subjects, we produce ideas, we mine data from this massive network of data that's being built. Again, there's going to be like 100 billion objects connected on the internet, and they're going to talk to each other, and we will be able to skim data, extract it, and make value out of it and share that. Okay, that's one way of moving into the world, but we're going to become prosumer. Okay, collaborative, common, open source, making everything available. Education is going to become marginally free. Healthcare is going to become predictive and therefore marginally free. So the thing is, we also don't need that much of resources anymore. You know, some people are talking about, I don't know how you say it in English. I only have the word in France. But basically the opposite of GDP, the opposite of growth, like slow, like let's say diminishing return. But it's not a diminishing return towards everything. Yes, we're going to use less energy and less resources in general because we're going to be more efficient at dealing with them and at producing them, and therefore we need less value on everything we do or everything we share to generate our wealth. But this is one of the things that you need to have in mind when you approach your plan, your strategy, how you want to set up your business, how you want to manage your wealth. Can you give me the next one? That's the last one? Okay, maybe. No big deal. So we become prosumer, we talked about that. Yeah, there is one last thing that I would like to address. Is that, okay, yeah, sorry, but I have one more. And again, this is something I stole from Jeremy Rifkin. I cannot stress enough how important it is to go watch him or read his book. It's gonna enlighten you so much about the change that is happening, or that has been happening already for the last 10 years. Okay, so we need to open our eye and look at it and make sure that we pick up the right clues and place ourselves at the right space. Now, I am massively optimistic. In general, you know, I get dumped by my girlfriend. Oh, I believe, okay? I believe in humanity. I believe in every project I'm working in. I am desperately optimist. This is my nature, okay? I'm not inviting you to be optimist because, I mean, do whatever you want. But it's a good way of looking at life. The thing is, I fundamentally believe that humanity is good. And I also believe that when we have the proper storytelling, we can move, and we can move fast. And we did. And the thing is, we can change our consciousness. How we approach and look at the world as individual and as a species. And there are three things that have changed. And Jeremy Rifkin taught me that. Freedom is one thing. Power is the other thing. And the notion of community is the last one. Freedom, for my generation, I'm 50 years old, I'm nearly 50. Freedom was about being independent. I can do what I want. I don't owe you explanation or reasoning. I was a free agent. This is how I grew up. You know, be a free man. Do what you want. But if you look at the kids today, freedom is being connected. It's being part of a network. Okay? I'm not going to expand too much, I'm not going to expand at all on the value of network, because Sim talked a lot about it and is much better to me at framing that. But this is how the new generations are approaching freedom. Being an autonomous agent is the opposite of freedom for them. It means you are alone. It means you can't move. It means you don't have access. That's one big change. The other change is, how do we approach power? You know, power used to be vertical, top to the bottom. The political power, the economical power, there's always a captain on the boat, always. But if you look at what's coming now, it is about sharing, it is about decentralization, it is about being lateral and open. That's power. When you're part of that network, when you have access to those resources, then you are in a position of power. The last one is community. And that one, I like it a lot. Community, for me, used to be sovereign. Like France, to some extent, is a community. My hometown, Paris, is a community. You know, my family is a community. This is how you look at community. I'm not saying, like, I love villages, and I know that this is not going to go away. But if you look at the kids today, because of that notion of network and interdependency between everything, their community becomes the biosphere. They don't just think in terms of human, they think in terms about ecosystem. They look at what's in their food and they're like, hey, this has consequences. And that makes me amazingly hopeful, because if we do change the consciousness, and basically that it's a feedback loop. So we are creating tools like the blockchain that embed those values, but in turn, that has an impact on who we are. Let me give you an example. When I was 14 years old, back in 87, when I turned 14, which is the legal age for you to have a 50cc motorbike, I got a motorbike. It was my motorbike. I own it. It comes with status. Okay? I'm a different person. I have more power. And this is the most important thing, it is mine. Nobody can take it. Mine. But today, you rent. You don't buy. We already had that discussion. I'm not going to go back there again. We share. I'm talking about my bike, but it can be a toy. There are tools today where parents can exchange toys, can buy one, but then put it back. But look at the value that's coming with that. It's completely different. When you give that toy to a kid, the story that comes with it is that toy you're going to use for now. But somebody else had it before you, and somebody else will have it after you. What you get is the experience of the toy. You do not own the toy. And when you engrave that in people, when you can, Tim says that all the time. If 25 years ago I would have told you you're going to put your kid in the car of a stranger, you would have said no way. And now we're doing it. Uber. If 25 years ago I would have told you you will let strangers live in your house when you're gone, you would have said no fucking way. And now you're doing it and you're making money with it. So the relationship you entertain with your house, with what you own, is changing. But this change here, it's about consciousness. The consciousness of every individual, and therefore the species consciousness. Now I'm gonna probably finish soon. I have to. I'm gonna reconnect to the previous talk, but that consciousness at a species level, and the fact that now we have this new coat of sense, of a new nervous system that is being built, a new way of moving information around, a new way of moving electricity around. Again, this is not a question of if, it's not even a question of when, because it's already on the way. But humanity is awakening with a new memory, with a new way of interacting with the universe, with a new nervous system, and we are part of it. And the consciousness of that humanity, I like to look at it as a meta being, that consciousness is shaping and changing really fast. Now, to summarize, zero marginal cost, this is where we're going. We have a third industrial revolution that comes with internet, automated vehicle, and an internet of energy. This is going to be a revolution. This is going to remove a lot of friction. This is going to allow us to operate in a very different way, where the aggregated efficiency of everything we produce is going to skyrocket while it's been plateauing for the last 30 years. In the previous talk, I was saying that we will all be out of job soon. However, we need to build those networks. So there is still 10, maybe 20 years of work, okay, both educated and non-educated work, to deploy those networks, to retrofit whatever we inherit from the second industrial revolution. We need to make sure that in every building, in every house, in every warehouse, we have objects that are talking to each other, that we have small, local, self-sufficient electricity production connected to a smart grid of energy that can distribute and make sure that we do that smart. We are going to switch to a green energy. That's not even a question. And we're going to remove friction. And we're going to have everything go faster, which is exactly what blockchain does for information. As individuals, we have the possibility to invest whatever we have, mostly time and money, to appreciate that change and be part of it. Because we are still in this part of the curve. We are not here yet. And everybody who's going to invest in here is going to profit from it. You can invest in blockchain solution. You can invest in crypto project. Do your due diligence. Take your time. This is not a casino where you win, 2 months later. I don't know about you, but I am not a trader. Whatever little amount of money and whatever little amount of time I have, I invest carefully. I study the project. I put a little bit of money, but I can promise you that if you stay long enough, and when I say long, it's not that long, because that curve is going to happen in the next 10 years, but pick a few projects here, anywhere between 5 and 10 projects. Invest in them, and you're going to be here, and this is going to be a lot. Now, at the same time, you have to appreciate the fact that everything is being I'm having problem with words today. Dematerialized, digitalized, and we are going towards a zero marginal cost on nearly everything. This is the output of the third industrial revolution that is in movement, or that is already happening. And you need to look at what you do in life through that lens, okay? Because if you're still plugged onto the old wall, and if you operate with high marginal cost, you're gonna get crushed. You're gonna get crushed like the music industry was crushed, like the hotel industry is being crushed by Airbnb, and so on. The thing is, that switch from the digitalized world to the physical world is happening whether you like it or not. So look at whatever you're doing, look at your business, look at your work, look at what you own, and try to think about all that through that lens. And if you have a better plan, please come here, tell me. Thank you. Questions?